Get you the very latest on the story now. ENCA's Athi Mtongana brings us the very latest from Cape Town. Athi, what is the Public Servants Association telling you?
A very good morning to you, Michelle. Let me start with setting the scene. We're outside in Kaiserkracht, where members of the PSA, particularly SASSA members, Michelle, have gathered behind me. I'm going to ask my colleague to show you a few members of SASSA that have already started gathering here in Kaiserkracht. This is where normally marches start here in Cape Town. We know that they'll be marching down to Parliament. They have a memorandum of grievances that they'll be handing over. We also understand, Michelle, that the PSA will be meeting and is in fact right now meeting with the Minister of Social Development in Pretoria. But right now I'm joined by Koos Kruger, the PSA provincial spokesperson here in the Western Cape, who'll shed more light about why they're here. And just to clarify matters, we know that some unions have agreed to a wage offer last week. We know that now these members of SASSA are continuing with the strike. Just set some clarity and let our viewers understand where we stand with all of the talks that have been going on for months.
For sure. You must understand, initially our day of rage had two components. The one was our dissatisfaction about the poor salary offer for public servants in general. That has been settled on Friday when the majority of unions signed an agreement, essentially on lesser terms, you can't believe it, but on lesser terms than the initial offer of government in January made to public servants. But that has now been settled, and the PSA is prohibited from striking in terms of a public sector wage negotiations. What we still have is the issue about SASSA, where SASSA is outside of a public service. They're not appointed in terms of a Public Service Act. They do not fall within the scope of a PSCBC, where public servant salary negotiations are taking place. But SASSA has got their own bargaining forum. But the Minister has been defying the PSA as a majority union in SASSA the opportunity to engage in collective bargaining. We understand why the Minister is doing so, because in the PSCBC, which salary agreement the Minister of Social Development wants to follow, COSATU is a majority, and we know that in COSATU they've got an alliance with the governing ruling party, and there's a political mandate in settling wage disputes. Whilst in SASSA the PSA is a majority union, and we have different demands. The same demands we actually pursued in the PSCBC, but aimed at the improvement of conditions of service for SASSA members. And that she has been defying us. Up until today she refused to meet with us, and now on the 11th hour, on the day our strike commenced, now all of a sudden she's prepared. But we are hopeful that there will be progress, and that we are hopeful that our demands will now enjoy the attention of a minister that it should.
I was just going through your memorandum earlier on, and you know there's a list of demands. Obviously, some of them include a housing allowance. Just talk to us about some of those grievances.
Well, our basic first and important demand is that of a salary increase for our SASSA employees that beats inflation, and that also beats the recent hike in VAT and also the hike in the fuel price. We also have some secondary demands, including danger allowance for SASSA employees who have to go out in very dangerous and uncontrolled circumstances, serving the poorest people of our community who are dependent on SASSA for a livelihood. There's a housing allowance matter where we believe that the 1,250, which constitutes the current housing allowance, is by far not sufficient enough to provide employees with opportunity to obtain and to enter the housing market. And we want that condition of service to be improved.
Okay. Lastly, Koos, before I let you go, how will the services of SASSA, be affected by its members now participating in this strike?
Well, I think our services today will definitely have a disturbing effect on the services. It will have it will inconvenience SASSA and the community to some extent today, but it will not be disruptive to the extent that there will be no services. In the Western Cape, where we are now, we have about 570 PSA members out of a component of roughly 700 SASSA employees, of which we expect to see by 11 o'clock today, when the march will commence, about 300 of those SASSA employees here. So yes, Services will be disrupted today, but I don't think at all that it will cripple the service delivery today.
All right, thank you very much. That was Koos Kruger, Michelle, from PSA here in the province, saying that SASSA services will not be majorly affected by some of its members participating in this march. Will get underway from 11. These members will be joined by more SASSA members who will be then marching and proceeding through to Parliament.